On today's video we're going to learn about the present simple. So, let's begin.
Right, I chose to talk about the present simple or the simple present. It's the same. Why? Because it's very, very important in English and you need to know it. So if you look at the timeline that I drew here, we have the past, the future, and the vertical line is now. We can find the present simple or the simple present everywhere. We need an auxiliary. What kind of auxiliary in this case? Do or does? Yes, the auxiliary is an indicator of what tense we're speaking of. So if you look at the first example or the first type of sentence is a negative, and in the negative we need the auxiliary. So we have the subject first, then the auxiliary plus not, then the base of the verb, then the object, and maybe the time expression. I chose to start with the verb to be, and you know that the verb to be acts by itself, so it doesn't need an auxiliary. So the example is, I'm not John, I'm Mark, you know that. So I'm not John, I am not John. Now, an example without the verb to be would be, he doesn't speak Hungarian. So you can see does is the auxiliary, plus not, doesn't, does not. We prefer to use the contractive form. Then the base of the verb, which is speak, and then the object, Hungarian. Now for a question, WH question word. If you haven't seen my lesson on making questions, you can click here. So as I said, WH question word sometimes, then the auxiliary, do or does, then the subject, then the base of the verb, then the object sometimes, and then the time expression sometimes. I gave you two examples also showing the verb to be. So, where do you live, for example? Where do you live? You can see where is the WH question word, auxiliary do, because it's not the third person singular. You would be do, you do, so do you, and then leave the base of the verb. Or if you want to use the verb to be, who is he? So he would be the verb to be, doesn't need an auxiliary because it acts as itself as an auxiliary. Who is he? Now, if we look at the most important sentence here, because we have the third person singular, which changes, let's start first with the easiest one. So, the subject, then the base of the verb, then the object, and then the time expression sometimes. This referring to I, you, we, and they only. So, the example, we like music. If we have an example with the verb to be, they are friendly. They are friendly. So that's it. Now, if you look at the third person singular, we have the subject, then the verb, the base of the verb, then we add s or es depending on the verb you're using. Then the object, then the time expression sometimes, and I noted here is for the third person singular, he, she, or it. So, the example, he works as he works at a bank. Or the other example, she studies with es, she studies math.